On today's podcast, we have a lover of light, a warrior for truth, our plant-based brother who is changing lives through his personal training and coaching role at Conscious Athletics. With gratitude, we welcome the Miguel Ortiz to the 8020 podcast.
Bro, my man, thank you guys so much for having me. That was a beaut, man. You just pulled on my heartstrings, bro. That was a really nice. Thank you so much, man. A pleasure to be here, bro. So grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So we like to start a little silly. We're going to both ask you a question, and then we'll jump into everything. So, the goofiest thing, Miguel, that you see people do in the gym?
Goofiest?
Yes, goofiest. Like,
oh, okay.
No,
the juiciest. I was like, I was like, well,
I gotta watch.
Careful.
Yeah, right. The goofiest thing. I actually saw a player do this, or somebody do this, and I've actually seen NFL players do this with their neck. But so imagine you're laying on your back doing a glute raise, where your shoulders are still on the floor, and instead of just doing the glute bridge and lifting your hips up, lift your shoulders off the floor and roll the back of your neck so that your shoulders are off the ground and that your neck or the back of your head is only on the ground. So it was like an exaggerated glute raise to strengthen like their neck. And I went up to it and I was like, what are you doing? And I've seen people put stuff on their head, and now there's like a tool that like
iron neck. Yeah.
Yeah. The iron neck. So it kind of reminded me of like a beginner phase of that. That was probably one of because I mean, so many people use machines wrong and do other stuff. So I didn't want to say like the cliche, the in and out machine, or some people call it yes and no. And just doing funky things with machines. I've definitely seen some people hang upside down from cables like Spider-Man and stuff, but I would say that was probably one of the wildest ones with the neck. And this person didn't look like they should be doing, like they didn't look like they had a stable general spine. Like they had clear kyphosis of their back and whatnot, rounded shoulders. So I was like, man, that neck extension, that's going to be so goofy and, very risky, to say the least.
Okay. And then to follow that up with, what is your favorite trap song at this moment?
Favorite trap song? I don't know if I would, I guess, would Wale be considered in that trap? Because I would say that Down South by Wale.
Okay.
I like that.
That's a newer song you put out?
Yeah, but like I think he just put that out. It's like, yeah, I really like that. I think that's the name of the song, right?
Perfect.
Right?
It might be. I haven't heard it, but it sounds like something he would name a song. So
yeah, Down South by Wale. I really like that jam.
Perfect.
It's got like a classic beat to it.
Yeah.
And he just goes in. So I like it.
Good. For a while there, I thought Wale was done. I thought he was like, you know what, to in his feelings that he had maybe hit some of the numbers he wanted to in sales volume, and I thought maybe he bowed out of the race. But good to know he is still giving us some good music, because I like Wale as well.
Yeah, he came out with some heat. It was nice. It was definitely nice.
Perfect. Okay, so your name, the name of your company, Conscious Athletics.
Yes.
So obviously you're a trainer, you help people improve their physical fitness, and I'm sure other forms of fitness, I'd imagine, but to incorporate the name Conscious into it, and we'll get into some more of your history that has to do with some of your worldviews, but what was really the rationale behind that name and the underlying purpose behind including the conscious component to it?
Well, first, conscious is just a state of awareness. It's a general state of awareness. And I think when people sometimes see the name, beyond sometimes having confusion spelling it, when people usually get to see it, I think they just take it immediately high level. And it's really just a sense of awareness. And when I first started training, I got tons of different certifications. I really wanted to I wanted to learn so many different trades. I got TRX certifications, Viper certifications, kettlebell. Like I just hit a generalized list of like everything. I really wanted to have a lot of tools in my toolbox as much as possible. And as I continued to grow within my training, I realized that regardless of the type of training that you're doing, one thing was pretty paramount, and that's the ability to just focus in what you're doing. And whether or not you want to kill yourself at the gym, I think that person has a fairly state of awareness of what they're trying to do. And as exercise continues to get deeper and you get either more physical, you get stronger, there are elements to your training that you're going to need to become more aware of. And you can't really like ignore that. If you decide, if you're, let's say, a deconditioned person, you're trying to lose a lot of weight, the awareness to have to change and get rid of like soda and processed foods and things like that, that's one level. And as that person continues to grow, they're going to continue to reach deeper levels of a state of consciousness when it comes to their exercise and when it comes to self. And I wanted that name to just have a sense of focus instead of having like a frivolous, just like movement or thinking that all I do is just performance. I didn't want it to be just performance or use a generalized term, even like fitness to a degree. I like those names. I like those words. I see how people use them. But even a deconditioned person, even though they might think of themselves not being an athlete, if you have a body, you're an athlete. How you move it and the time you're in, the space you're in, and where you are is relative, again, to that time and that moment in space. So once again, that whole conscious approach was mainly just, hey, I want people to have a better awareness for what they're doing, the movements they're doing, why that they're doing it, instead of just, oh, I do these. No, I want you to learn the name. Like, I want you to know why you're doing this. I want you to know why I'm giving you this exercise, why I'm coupling it with this. Like, I want to be able to educate you so that maybe I don't have to train with you forever. So that was kind of my goal there with conscious athletics, just having people have a more awareness around what they're doing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And obviously, I fell for the bait there, taking it super high level instead of looking at it for really what the underlying word conscious and athletics mean. And then just a follow up to that, when you start working with new clients or even clients you've worked with for a while, do you notice a general trend of where they first have to build up that awareness so that they can move forward? Is there something in common often that's kind of like the first thing that you all focus on that's not strictly physical and mechanical?
Yes, there's two things. I would say the first thing is the food and in general food period. And the second thing is a lot of their attitude and just their general mindset of kind of where they're at. Besides the physical stuff, everybody knows they want to move. Everybody knows they need to move. How the way that they do it is critical and unique, and they get that part. But a lot of the food stuff, I really try to go over, and I also don't put myself in a category of trying to train everybody or feel like I really need to train everybody. Sometimes I can't tell you how many people I've met with and sat down and been like, to review the level of accountability that they want, I really try to mold them and to try to get them to understand what the process is going to look like to see if they're really ready to engage in something that is going to have that level of accountability or a higher level of accountability. I don't want to just say, yeah, for $800 a month, I'm going to be able to do X, Y, Z, and you're going to see all these changes. I like to go through more, like when it comes to food. If you start eating a little bit more fruit, you're probably going to go through a lot more detox symptoms. You're probably not going to feel so good. Expect some pimples, expect some like TMI bathroom breaks, expect some like serious gas. And they're like, oh, I don't even know if I want to I don't even know if I want to sign up for this. And I'm like, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Like, I want people to know exactly what they're going to be getting into. And most of the time, it deals with a lack of understanding with food that they really need to kind of bring into gear, and a mindset shift. The mindset shift usually, for example, deals with someone that is already stressed, works a lot, or just has that general stress, and then they want to do really, really hard workouts. And I'm like, I'd love to be able to push you like that appropriately, but I need to get some guarantees too. I need you to be hitting like 8 hours of sleep. I need you to make sure you have enough water. Like, yeah, I can destroy your body. That's the easy part. Burpees, pull-ups, cleans, deadlifts, squats, and we can do all the heavy stuff. Like, I really do think it's easier to break down the body, but to make the body feel good, to have a person understand their body and to be more aware, like even something like balance, working on balance and stability. People just really aren't aware, going back to conscious, aware of their body, aware of some of these movements. And they're not aware of how their body is going to feel when they do these movements. They have a very ridiculous expectation sometimes, I think, when it comes to results-based culture. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and all of a sudden everything is going to change. Like, boo-boo, you have no idea how you may feel just yet. Like, you may do something that's going to get you to feel different. Like, you may, eat these things, and you're going to end up having these bathroom breaks, whatever. In the like, everybody is that unique fingerprint, and I think we need to sometimes treat it as such, even though we can pull these great tools and all these programs from different people, different tricks of the trade. Oh, try this exercise. Great. We can marry all that together, but what is going to be best for the individual? Sometimes it's why I think I haven't done as well with some online stuff, but I'm also I'm very happy with the clientele that I've been able to keep, especially since COVID started. So those are the two main things. Just to follow up with that question again: food, and then their general expectation and attitude awareness, mindset awareness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miguel, I don't think I've ever asked you this. How and you and I have a little bit more context, meeting in Fineo and doing Kettle Club and whatnot. But how'd you get into training?
Okay, so I went to 3 different high schools. I'm going to start way back. I went to 3 different high schools. I was in high school in Florida. I went 3 high school. Started high school in Florida. Went to a military school in Texas, and then finished my junior and senior year in Georgia. Moved around a lot. Was always in athletics, playing football, lacrosse, baseball. I've done a lot of different sports. So I've always been playing sports back and forth. Didn't matter where I went. I ended up going to Auburn for a year, and I had walked on to their lacrosse team, had a lot of fun with their athletic department, and I'd constantly been working out. That had never stopped, regardless of what I was doing. And throughout the entire time, because I was definitely the kid in high school that was like, I'm going to go and play college sports, is why I kind of listed the high school thing. And even though when I went to Auburn, I ended up leaving Auburn. I only went to Auburn for a year. I ended up coming back to Georgia, went to Georgia Perimeter College. Didn't play sports, but again, continued to work out. And while I was there, I ended up dropping out of school. And I was working, I think I was about 20, 21 at the time, because I started at Lifetime Fitness in November of 2008. And asterisk that, going back to that apartment and back when I was at Georgia Perimeter and continuously working out, dropping out of college. So I was basically working at a restaurant. I worked at Mad Italian, which is a like a steak joint, or like a Philly cheesesteak joint off of like Dunwoody in Dunwoody. And I was there working and training. That's all I was doing. So my mom ends up giving me this like newspaper article about NPTI. It's a National Personal Training Institute. It's 500 hours of orthokinematics, 500 hours of muscle physiology. Orthokinematics, by the way, is joint movement, and 1,000 hours of nutrition. And after I did that, I was just loving it. And it was the first time I really enjoyed studying something. And throughout high school and whatnot, I'd made some good grades and done some good work. I was a pretty average student. I definitely wasn't always making A's. But that's when I realized I actually enjoyed wanting to shape my craft. I was already exercising, but I never really had any aspiration to like want to learn. I'm dyslexic, so I don't really like reading unless I want to read the topic. Like, I would rather read something about muscle physiology than like a random book that's going to take me into maybe, like, I'm already in my own head with make-believe stuff, so I can go there. I don't need Dungeons and Dragons or like a book to do that. I can just go there in my own head. So educationally, I was really loving reading like about muscle physiology, exercise science, and all that. And that's when I was just super grateful for my mom for sending me that newspaper article. I went through that school and PTI. I was just loving studying the body and studying exercise and just going through that and shaping my body. I'd also had a lot of injuries, so it was really cool to kind of go through that. And it's just been uphill and just personal training since that time. So ever since basically getting that MPTI certification, I've been training and studying for training and nutrition and muscle physiology ever since November of 2008. Yeah, so a little over 13 years. And then as soon as my last day at Lifetime was in March of 2020? Is that when COVID started? Right, we're 2 years into this. So
right. It's debatable when it did start, when it did end, if it'll ever end. But here we are.
For me, it never really started. Like as soon as I think I took like 2 days off, I was like, okay, so I'm just going to go live on IG and I'm going to get outside because I'm not going to not stop going outside. I'm not going to not exercise or do that. So follow me and we'll keep going. I was very busy because a lot of people were very indecisive about what they wanted to think. And I was just very, I don't want to say courageous, but I was definitely very content and confident about like, I need to exercise. I still need to see people. I think it's good to be in connection with people. Since March 15th, which was the day that everything kind of shut down here in like Georgia, I want to say, I would say I took one day off, like the 16th, and I was like, I'm going to get in touch with all my clients. I can go to your house. I can bring power blocks. I can bring all the equipment. We'll set up and I'll go to your place. I'll make a little gym setup in your garage. I've helped like a bunch of clients help gym setups. I just kept going to people's houses, and I still kind of stayed that busy like throughout that entire time. I never stopped. I have a massage table. I was doing trigger point therapy. I'll show up at your house. You can come to me. And then I was just molding my little garage gym. That was really about it.
Sae'Von?
So you said something interesting there. You mentioned trigger point therapy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably 2019 that I'd even heard that term before. And that's because my partner, she is a massage therapist as well. And I'm curious how, for where you're at right now, how much of that kind of work and what other body work you're a practitioner of, and how your clients, how you integrate that into the personal training side of things.
Nice. I view the trigger point therapy, foam rolling, stretching, massage, I kind of put that all into one category. So I view it as like a cold shower and a hot shower. So the hot shower is what everybody's used to. Everybody likes the exercise, the running gets you hot, makes you feel good, fantastic, right? You got the hot shower. It's something you're used to. The cold shower, we know, has its benefits. It's good for you, but people don't do it as often. And this is where I put the recovery side of that. So that's the trigger point therapy, the foam roll, and the stretching. And the reason why I started to get into that so much, when I was at Lifetime, I was discriminated against in a really good way. I was 21, so I'm a young trainer. And of course, the stigma is, okay, you're young, you look good, so you probably just want to sleep with all your clients, or you just want to sleep with all the women, or stuff like that. So I was like, okay, this is actually a pretty good stigma, because now I can just train all the overweight or anybody that is deconditioned. So a lot of what I did when I was first at Lifetime, besides having some clients given to me by other managers and other trainers, which is great, Lifetime's got a really phenomenal feeder program at that, and helping you build your business from when I was there. So I was working with a lot of deconditioned people, which is fantastic. And I was watching some people walk on a treadmill, and especially with deconditioned people, I had some people that are very overweight, 300 pounds, 300 plus. And the amount of pressure that was putting on the knees, putting on the ankle from trying to lose weight was just so heavy. And I was teaching a weight loss class, and I had these two ladies, and it was 6 p.m. on like a Friday. And I was like, you know what, ladies, why don't we just stop class and I just give you both some trigger point therapy work, show you both how to foam roll. Let's relieve the knees for like 20 minutes for the both of you. And then we'll get back on the treadmill, and then start walking. We'll see how you feel. So both ladies, I was showing them how to foam roll the top of the knees. I was showing them foam roll behind the hamstrings, getting them onto a box because foam rolling for an overweight person on the floor is very difficult. So I grabbed a chair, showed them how to foam roll on a chair, showed them how to get into all these different positions, got through different stretches. I even myself, very lightly, I was like, listen, I'm not a massage therapist, so I'm not allowed to be doing this. May I put my hands on your knee and lightly massage? Just to let you know, the only background I got is massaging ex-girlfriends and my mother. That's about it. That's my experience right there, is massaging my mom's feet and ankles and her knees every once in a while. When I was a kid, she would ask me to do that kind of stuff. I was always pretty good with my hands, so she trusted me to do that. And other girlfriends and stuff. But I always felt like I was pretty good with my hands. So I was like, if you don't mind, I'd like to lightly massage around your knees. And they were like, sure, no problem. So I'm working around the knees, working around the calf, doing all these things. And both ladies are going through their normal, like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, that feels a little tender, right? All the normal signs you get from general foam rolling, some massage work. And they get down onto the floor. And the first time they both got up to go walk, they kind of got a little teary-eyed as they were walking. And I was like, is everything okay? Like, what's going on? And they both kind of started crying a little because they were like, my knees haven't felt this good in so long. They just felt lighter. They felt good. And they got back on the tread. It was like the best walk they've done. Their knees didn't hurt that bad. And after that day, I was like, there's no way I can't not incorporate some kind of foam rolling, some kind of trigger point therapy, some kind of just deeper understanding and just getting in tune with the body. So after that moment, I've constantly been like, you need to be able to understand how to foam roll, be aware of your body, what is going on, and then continue to take it from there. Funny things that I thought with like strength athletes. I one time had a guy was deadlifting like 500 pounds. And he came to me asking for advice about like, to help his back. Because he's like, oh, my back hurts when I deadlift 500 pounds. And I was like, cool, do you stretch? And he goes, well, stretching hurts too bad. And I was like, oh my God, bro. You just told me you're deadlifting 500 pounds and you're like, and that's what I thought. That's what I think is so funny. Hot and cold shower. You will push yourself through that hot shower. But as soon as someone dips their toes into a little bit of cold water, they're like, oh, it's too cold. Oh man, I can't tolerate that. It's like, and that's what the foam rolling is like. That's what the stretching is like for some people. They like dip their toes into like foam rolling and stretching just a little bit. And they end up getting like scared and forget. And they're like, oh, that hurts too bad. And I'm like, no, like you might have not been coached on it right, or you just went too far in. Like, don't just jump into the cold water without like understanding the expectation. Like you got to have like an awareness of what you're about to embark on. And that's again where the conscious, mindset comes from when you do the foam rolling and trigger point therapy. I always tell people, it's a neurological response, being able to let go, right? If I want to tighten up my biceps, I put weight in, my brain is sending those signals, it's telling to tighten up. And if I were to give you 20-pound bicep curls, great, right? You might be able to knock that out for however many reps. But if I give you 100 pounds, you're going to be like, bro, I got so many compensations and so many things going on. Same thing, if someone's never foam rolled and you throw them into a position that's going to be really, really heavy, they're going to respond and be like, no, I can't do that. But if you let them tolerate that and be able to build into it, they're going to be able to get a lot more neuromuscular focused work. And their brain is going to be able to say, hey, that pressure isn't bad. You can relax. Just like the brain is saying, hey, that weight, you can lift that. Keep going. Brain has got that awareness has to be involved in there. So after that moment with those two ladies, that it's been like, I definitely think foam rolling and that awareness of the body, and however you do it, whether it's general stretching, you just have to have an awareness of the body and a neuromuscular awareness. And funny thing is, actually, there was a study released that said that it's not knots or adhesions that cause improper movement patterns. It's actually the brain's inability to turn muscles on and off to let go, from that standpoint. So if someone's just knotted up, that body, that mind is just like, constantly turned on, and that person has an inability to let go. From that standpoint. So even when it comes to general exercise, people will blame injuries on exercise. And I was like, it's not the squat that hurts you, it's your lack of preparedness to do that specific squat. That's why you ended up, getting hurt or ended up having an impingement or a disc slip or something ends up happening. Like, it's very possible to work your way around issues, but avoidance is always the best short-term solution to avoid a conflict. It's also the best solution to ensure suffering. So, there's that.
Makes a lot of sense there. A lot of sense. I think it can be easily discounted, the power and the importance, the role that the mind plays in guiding the body, even through those uncomfortable moments. There's a plaque behind James. Can you tell everybody what it says, James?
What's that say?
Comfort is a slow death. Prefer pain.
Yeah. And people think that pain is always like bad. Like, if I were to take away your pain, I'd also have to take away all your wisdom. Because after some kind of pain will come some kind of learning. You cannot end up being like, oh, I wish all my pain would go away. Well, if you keep wishing that, you're going to be dumber, Chica, or whoever's saying it, right? Like, bro, like, if you end up taking away all your pain, you are going to lose everything you gained wisdom-wise from that. You can't end up having both.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of different philosophers who've even spoken on that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, James. I think it might have been Nietzsche. He basically said something to the effect of, I wish that the greatest thing I wish for anybody I care about is that they endure suffering of some kind.
Yeah. Nothing great has ever been achieved without much enduring. Period. You got to have to endure something. It's going to be something. And then whatever it is for you, then great. Then that's your beautiful worldly circumstance. That's where all that power continues to kind of come from, is the things that I feel like are kind of thrown at us, to an extent.
I've got a question on your conscious athletics. I think you've explained at length why your company is called Conscious Athletics. I'm curious if you were willing to accept that many people won't train with you or won't work with you because you're forcing them to work on their mind.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like I was about to lightly touch on that from like an elimination standpoint. So with every person that wants to train with me, which is why I can't just have people just throw. I was thinking about making a scheduler online and like having people throw into my schedule and show up to my gym and I'll train you. And I'm like, no, I want to sit down with you. I want to go through an hour consultation. I want to know and just ask tons of different questions, really get to know you. And then I'm going to give you a complimentary session on how I think a training session should go for you at this point in time. Like, I would rather give enough so that the people really understand what they're about to embark on than try to lead with like, not false hope, but I feel like it's false hope if I don't know what I'm also about to embark on with the training of that individual. If someone just shows up in my gym and is like, hey, Miguel, start training me, and I don't really know what's going on with them, I don't understand all this stuff, then it feels like I'm going to give them a false promise of like, oh, you're going to get to this point by the end of the month. Like, no, I'd rather really sit down and go through as much accountability and understanding as I need to so that I can really give you a good quality understanding of expectations and accountability so that we really get a properly vested image of what we're about to embark on. And it does end up pushing a lot of clients away, or potential clients. A lot of people end up being like, no, I don't think this is the right fit. And I'm like, cool, no worries. I wish you the best of luck, but I do recommend going this route, this route, this route. And ironically enough, when I do those recommendations, people end up learning something from that. They're like, oh, Miguel, this was great. Thank you so much for leading me in that direction. I realized I didn't need to do that. And sometimes they end up coming back because they kind of go through circles and end up realizing, hey, you know what? I'm doing some of the things that you said, but I'm going to kind of turn down my expectations because I'm realizing what you said, Miguel, was important, but I don't have those accountability. I don't have that accountability. I don't have that person helping guiding me, but I'm listening to what you were saying and what I can manage now. And once I'm ready to turn up that accountability, I'll come back to you. And that's actually what I end up getting a lot is, people doing little changes and working with themselves a little bit more, which I think is phenomenal. Like I don't expect to train everybody, and nor do I think I should, nor do I kind of want to be honest. And also kind of this is a big one. I don't even think my job should be a thing to an extent. I really, I tell you what, the first time, my dad told me when I became a trainer, because I dropped out of college. I do have a lot of college credited classes that can go for stuff. Like if I go back and graduate, I got to finish for like a history, a chemistry, all things I definitely don't want to do, which is probably why I put that off for so long. But I've definitely, because of some advanced certifications and all the kinesiology stuff that I've done and whatnot, it's helped my college credits, to an extent. But I feel like, sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. I feel like when my dad told me, he said, "You're not going to make six figures being a personal trainer. What are you doing?" And I was so excited, my third year at Lifetime, showing him my W-2 and being like, "There's 6 digits on there. Like I got one good comma, boom, I got 6 digits. What's up, Dad?" And he was just like, "Holy shit." And to me, I was kind of like, man, I'm so grateful that I can be in this position. But then at the same time, I was kind of pissed off about a lot of things because I was like, I feel like people should know what I know to a degree. To like some degree, I feel like people should kind of know some things about the body. When it comes to more specific athletic training, cool, like I get it. But we definitely, when it comes to like, again, food, when it comes to like understanding the body, basic stuff, general movement, squats, push-ups, pull-ups, like going through the calisthenics, eating good quality food. Like I feel like we should get that. But then we have marketing things like on food labels. Oh, you can have this. It's part of your daily intake. Like, bro, get out of here. Like, no, Sour Patch Kids are not going to be rating some percentage for daily intake of what I'm supposed to be having in a day. Like, that's absolutely absurd. So, to a degree, I don't feel like I should do so. If I can get to a point where I can keep training, keep educating, and I can put enough information out there that it helps a ton of people and the whole world has changed and no one needs a personal trainer anymore, cool, I'll do something else. I'll move on to something else. But other than that, I'm at.
One follow-up there. Is it that people don't know that Sour Patch Kids shouldn't be in their daily diet? Or is it that they're choosing to take short-term comfort and push out the time horizon that they're willing to embark on suffering if they even make it that far in life?
It's the second one for sure, but it also comes with reassurance, right? So the reassurance we get in the medical industry, and I actually did this when so many trainers used to be like, "Dude, Miguel, you're gonna have some problems with people." And I'm like, I've yet to have problems with people. And I've had so many people cry on my shoulder, but nonetheless, doctors would be like, someone would go to the doctor and they don't feel good. They know they don't look good to an extent. And they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, "Oh, you're fine. Maybe take this medication, do this. It's all reassurance medication. Take this, you'll be fine. Oh yeah, a donut a day, or, have this or have that." And it's just like, okay, it's all this reassurance stuff. Oh, well, if you get cancer, we have these treatments. If you get this, you have this stuff. And I just constantly am like, that's all just nonstop reassurance. Those are not good quality behaviors. So when I was a trainer, I had a mirror in one of the back offices and people would be like, "Oh yeah, what I'm eating is fine. I just want a trainer to do all these things. And what I'm eating is fine." Doctor says, "What I'm eating is fine." I'd be like, "Okay." And then I'd pick the mirror and I'd put it in front of him and I'd be like, "Does this look fine to you?" I mean, you tell me if this is fine. If you can look in the mirror and be like, "That's perfectly fine." Great. Good. Then we're golden. And I've had a couple people get teary-eyed. I'd have a couple people like, Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, exactly what I mean. Do you really feel like what the doctor told you from a reassurance standpoint? And I want to preface this for any doctors listening. There's a difference between doctors and surgeons. Two big, significantly big differences there to an extent. And then there's another category of doctors that I really do enjoy and appreciate. But nonetheless, that fine aspect and that reassurance training, James, like people feel like they're they have some comfort, but they've been given reassurance, and there's compromise that they can get. And most of the time when people eat bad, it becomes punishment. Like, drink on Saturday, drink over the weekend, and I'm going to take care of myself throughout the week. And it's just a vicious cycle that people don't realize that they're actually going through. That's not, very good. People do not understand stress very well. I don't think that they understand stress a lot to a degree. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no,
I feel like that's excellent because people don't want to, you're always reassured all the time. Like, no, like everybody on my mom's side has passed away. My mom had a foot of her intestine removed. She's had a mastectomy. My dad had a stroke 8 years ago. My uncle passed away from a stroke a couple of years back. Majority of my people on my mom's side, my grandma, this is a really funny story. My grandma had throat cancer, like a ball like that, right? So when I was young, I was very intuitive. And my mom would always get upset because every time she brought me to the doctor, especially when I would go with my grandma, I'd be like, how are you going to cut into her and take that out? And where's all the blood go? How is she not going to bleed? What does this knife do? Why do you have so many different knives? Like, it was just question after question after question. And my mom was just like, Mikey, be quiet. My mom used to call me Mikey. Mikey, be quiet. And the doctor was like, no, these are great questions. Like, keep it going. Like, I'll answer all of them. Well, the day after he answered all these questions, and he ends up telling me that smoking is really bad for my grandma. My grandma goes to smoke a cigarette outside. And as soon as she did, I locked the door. And I was like, you're not allowed to be smoking. So I'm locking you out. You're not allowed to come back. But I was like 8. My grandma had to go across the street. We had an Italian neighbor. I grew up in New York, by the way. We had an Italian neighbor. So she went and gets Griselda. Griselda comes down. She has to open up the door. And I double lock the next door. And I'm padlock and everything. It's like, you're not allowed to smoke. Throw away your cigarettes. I refuse to let her in. So I always had that I'm going to kind of stand up attitude for what I think is kind of right. I've been doing that since I was really young, which has been kind of interesting. Great.
Good on you. I'm a firm believer that children often see with far greater clarity than any other peer group because they're just so receptive to things. And another thing I just look at is just literally, metaphysically, they are closer to source than older people are.
Yes.
So there's been less time for their opinions and their intuition to be watered down and killed off the way that happens for a lot of people. And that's a perfect segue into, I wanted to ask how you came about, we on a similar walk together, but how you arrived at the decision to adhere to a more plant-based diet, because and definitely we're in a period where it's a fad now. And so some people do it for the clout. Some people do it because they want to post acai bowls on Instagram or Tulum or shit like that. But to your point of making these sacrifices, because anyhow, if you could tell us, enlighten the audience on how you got to that decision, why you did it, and if that's something, or how you go about communicating that to your clients.
Love it. So the first thing, my wife and I, because we've only been vegan now. This November will be our 3rd vegan Thanksgiving. So it'll be a full 3rd. And we've been vegan for about a little over 3 years. So, because we had started, a little over 3.5 years ago. And we were watching this TV show. It was on the Gaia network. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Gaia. So we were on Gaia, and we're listening to people like David Wilcock and some other guys, and Corey Good, Emery Smith, and a bunch of random whistleblowers, and tons of different people talking about all kinds of things, aliens, all kinds of cool stuff. You can go on Gaia and you can see there's great yoga classes. There's all kinds of stuff on there, which is really dope. And one of these disclosure guys, and keep in mind, even when I was eating meat, I was pretty upset with certain things. Like I've still been upset with fast food, whether I was eating meat or not eating. I was kind of like, you guys are ruining meat. None of this is really that good anyway. Like, so all of those things really kind of bothered me. Nonetheless, when it came to food. So I've always been a big advocate about that. And just medicine in general. Doctors practice medicine, nutritionists study nutrition. So there's a little bit of a difference there. They provide nutrients and what they provide. So when I was watching this one TV show, and one of these disclosurists, and of course, he's talking about some off the wall wild stuff, but he said that he was in contact with someone, a being, whatever. And he said that the being told him he had to have a higher vibrational diet. And I was like, what's a high vibrational diet? That I've never heard. Out of all the things I've heard, Atkins diets, all these different things, all this different stuff. What is the you got paleo, keto stuff. You have all these different diets. And I was like, high vibrational. I've never heard that. It really intrigued me. So the first analogy, and I'll give you the same analogy because this is what really sparked my interest. So the guy gives the first analogy. He said, have you ever taken a light bulb and you plug it into a fruit or a potato, orange or a potato? Did you guys ever do that in high school? Did you guys ever do that in school? You take a light bulb and you plug it into
life sciences. Yeah.
Okay. So if light and energy has a vibrational measurement, which we know that it does, then food has that same vibrational, measurement. And he was basically saying you want to have the light energy and the vibration that comes from the energy or light source from that food. So when we started looking at what would be higher vibrational on a scale, considering angstroms. Angstroms is a unit of measurement for electricity, right? So angstroms is going to be that unit of measurement. And ironically, fruits have the highest vibrational content. You take a light bulb and plug that bad boy into an orange, it's going to stay lit for a pretty long period of time. And it's going to keep going. But as the orange decays, so will the brightness of the bulb, which is very interesting. And there was something else that I also looked up. Have you ever heard Kirlian photography?
Mm-hmm.
Kirlian, it is like the photography of the energy around an object. So if I were to put my hand down, you would be able to see the energy coming around. Just like if I touch one of those bulbs and my hair stands up,
mm-hmm.
that would be where the energy is actually going. My hair is just along that path on the torus of my energy body. So nonetheless, I was like, okay, so all these high vibrational foods. So you had fruits, then you ended up having vegetables, then you ended up having nuts, then nuts and seeds, then you ended up having cooked vegetables, then you ended up having raw meat and more organs of animals. Then you ended up having cooked meat. So cooked was at the very bottom. Anything ending up being overly cooked ends up losing its angstroms. So if I were to take a raw piece of salmon and then put it next to a cooked piece of salmon and do the Kirlian photography on the raw piece of salmon or fish, you would find much more electrical units and angstroms versus the cooked piece. And you could see that pretty significantly, which is why true carnivores have to have their food raw. They don't end up cooking it. It's also another reason why true carnivores like eating the intestines, the liver, the organs of the animal versus eating the outside as much. So as I started putting all these pieces together, I was kind of like, wow, that's very interesting. I've never heard a high vibrational diet like that. Let me see what it kind of does. So over time, because I have hunted, I've killed a lot of different things, especially being in military school. I've learned how to eat turtle, cook it on its shell, other animals, rabbits, make little nooses. Like I've hunted and cooked everything. So it definitely wasn't at first about the animals. It was definitely about a general sense of education and looking at the deeper why. And then I started kind of comparing that to our human society of what we're looking at when it comes to hunters. And everybody's like, oh, we're hunters and gatherers. And I'm like, it's really not that hard to hunt a cow or a chicken. And people are like, oh yeah, hunter gatherer. I'm like, okay, well, what's really running away? Fish run away, deer run away. You got to fight for those, right? Have you ever hooked a tuna? Yeah, you're reeling that thing for hours, bro. Like that thing is fighting. Deer gonna run away. Buffalo, it's probably gonna fight you or knock you over. But they're gonna put up a fight. So animals that put up a fight are gonna taste significantly different than animals that don't. And as I kind of started getting into that a lot more, I was like, you know what? Okay, so me and my wife decided we're gonna eliminate one kind of meat item over time. So the last time we had steak was in California. We went to a really nice steak joint in California, and we got rid of steak after that. The last time I had fish was in Hawaii. The last time I had cheese was in Italy. The last time, so I went.
You did it right, man. You did it.
If I'm gonna eliminate these things, like I went to the greatest sources for them.
One last tour of it all.
Yeah, bro. So I was like, I'm going to eliminate it. But I can also tell you right now, the same day you plant the seed is not the same day you eat the fruit. And there are a lot of people that don't know how to really hunt, that don't know how to really gather. So regardless of the food that we're kind of eating, there's a big convenience when it comes into how we take care of ourselves and what we're doing with our food. So for me, it was more, okay, I'm going to educate myself. I want to see how I feel. I'm going to eliminate these things over time. And there was one other thing that I did when I eliminated all the animal protein. As I eliminated animal protein, I did the exact same workout every day. It was a general workout that wouldn't overwork me, that wouldn't overwork one muscle group. I just wanted to see like 2 chest exercises, 2 back, 1 shoulder, 1 arm, 1 tricep, and a couple good leg exercises. Nothing. And I wanted to see how my energy would feel. It wasn't that the weight was crazy heavy. Right? It was just simple. How would I feel as I eliminated this animal protein? And interestingly enough, I ended up getting more energy. I ended up feeling I could lift more. I did get thinner, but I was also feeling stronger. So then I started realizing, like, is this my true size? Is this what my true muscle density would be like now that I've cut out all these other inflammatory responses, testosterone, hormones, and things coming from other animals? So it was really cool to see myself get. So I started at like 190. I ended up getting down to 175, but was lifting the same as I was doing 190. Then I started lifting heavier, and my weight only got back to like 183, 184. And I was lifting heavier than I was when I was at 190. So I kept feeling good. I'm 34. My skin feels I feel fantastic. So if I were to eat meat, I can tell you right now, it's because I killed it. And I would not eat meat unless I did the dirty work. So it's very like, I have a very energetic, avatar-y kind of like, you think of the movie Avatar, like she kills the little thing and then she gets pissed off at the dude for like stirring up, all the stuff in the movie Avatar. And she prays over the animal as she kills it. I think that we would be able to separate true hunters and gatherers very quickly if someone actually had to pull the trigger or kill something. Because there's a lot of people out there that would be like, oh yeah, I'm a hunter. I'm like, I don't really think you'd actually pull the trigger. I think you're kind of a little bit of a bitch, but that's all right. That's cool. So,
it's actually on another podcast. We kind of dove into what it looks like if the government mandated that the only meat or the only other animals that you could eat were the ones that you pulled the arrow on, where you caught yourself. How many people would keep eating meat?
It wouldn't. It would be much less. As a matter of fact, mandating mass is significantly easier than mandating only drinking water or only doing certain things. Like,
no fact.
You know what I'm saying? So it would have been significantly harder to go in that direction because the convenience, the money, good health makes a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not. So that's why I wanted to do things in phases. I wanted to educate myself. And what I tell people now is that there are a couple different categories for food. So fruits are electrical. And just from an educational standpoint, your liver feeds your brain 5 to 10 milligrams of glucose every hour on the hour, no matter what. Have you ever understood the why we get hungover? Actually, but the whole reason why we end up even waking up early after like being up all night, and then we wake up early with a headache, and we're like surprised, like, oh, I drank all night. Why I'm up? Have you guys ever gone through the?
I haven't. No.
So if you drink alcohol, and let's say you're drinking from 9 to 12, and you stop at 12, well, your liver is going to be digesting from 12 to 3. So you may stop at 12. Your brain is being fed the sugar. So your liver, anything that is metabolized in the liver is technically considered a poison by the liver. So anything digesting in the liver is considered a poison. Now your brain is fed glucose, but everybody wants to tell you sugar is bad. So I kept rattling. I was like, why would they attack sugar? Why? So here's one of my theories. That's going to be in my, I have a book that I've been working on. It's called Diets, Disease, and Disharmony. And I feel like we're not harmonizing at all with any of our food. I don't care what you're eating. You're eating meat, certain day, it doesn't matter. There is a harmony and a balance that we are not focusing on. So nonetheless, people don't understand that when you end up drinking like that, your liver is metabolizing this, and it doesn't really want to feed the brain that sugar because it has to turn that alcohol into a sugar, right? So that it could feed the brain. So it's feeding the brain what it can. It's getting at that sugar, and that sugar feels good. So we're up dancing, we're up having a good time, and then we go to sleep. And we think the body is sleeping, we think the organs are sleeping, but realistically, your liver is constantly feeding the brain. So maybe you're still thinking about dancing at night. Maybe you're still thinking, man, I should have got that girl's number or whatever app. You're just going through it in your head, right? And you're enjoying whatever sleep. And then you wake up at like 7 a.m. because your liver decides to kind of shut off for a minute. And your liver's like, bro, I'm tired of feeding your brain all this non-sex sugar that I had to metabolize all freaking night while your body had to rest. So you know what? Now you're going to wake up feeling like crap. So you got a headache because now your brain doesn't have any more of that alcoholic sugar. The alcoholic sugar stopped. So now the liver is trying to regenerate itself. It's the only regenerative organ we have. It's trying to feed the brain, but it's got nothing to feed it. So you wake up wanting fatty foods, right? You want a fattier food. You want something that the liver can take in quick. And you think it's going to be pretty, good to feed the brain. And it's not. It gives the liver a falsified sense that it's digesting that fat, turning it into sugar and going to feed the brain. But then you feel fucking groggy and like shit all day. You don't end up feeling good. You're on the couch after eating a full pizza and you're like, oh, I should eat another meal today after being like super hungover. And then people wonder, why they feel bad. So that's what the body is technically going through when it comes to a hangover. Ironically enough, the next time you have a hangover, feed a smoothie. Give your body the intrinsic sugar, because everybody forget there's two sugars, two types. You have intrinsic and extrinsic. Extrinsic is what we've made. Intrinsic is what comes from plants, vegetables, fruits. It is natural, God-made sugars. And these are the sugars that feed your brain very well. One of the things I did, asterisk this for a second, I was working with my dad when he ended up having a stroke, and the best cognitive abilities he had and the best neuro connections that he ended up having when he would work at Shepherd Center. So best cognitive, so verbal, because he had to relearn to talk and all those things again and talk about words. The best he did from recovery is when he had fruit. And the best movement he did was when he ended up having more fruit. The brain was way more turned on neurologically, which to me makes sense why, whether you call it the medical industry or the FDA or whoever the hell created the food pyramid, rags on sugar. It makes so much sense to me why we don't have streets lined up with fruit trees. It makes so much more sense. Bro, if you ask any person that has a fruit tree if they've collected 100% of their fruit. They're going to tell you that a lot of that fruit has hit the ground. Blueberry trees, apple trees, fig trees, some of that fruit is going to hit the ground because it is be fruitful and multiply, I think is exactly why it says it like that biblically, because it's a not just fruitful with, oh, give you all these great things. It's not a, opens like, hey, I'm just going to give you all this stuff for free thing. No, you got to work. It is a fruitful, like be fruitful in your body, and you're going to be able to, have a much better mindset, I think. And I think you're going to be a lot more clear-headed. But it makes sense why they attack sugar, so hard. Like, oh, don't have fruit. It has too much sugar. Bro, you just had cake, a donut, processed foods, all of these other things that have to be metabolized and digested in the body. Like, what are you talking about? Don't have sugar. Like, so it's the bad sugars, and it made so much more sense to me why our health industry attacks sugar. Because if we as a population ate more fruit, I guarantee you we have much less, we don't have as much of a sick population. Fruit doesn't cause issues, it exposes them. If you want, do a test over the weekend. Eat for one day as much watermelon and grapes as you possibly can devour. Go ham. Buy 3 watermelons. Guarantee you won't finish 2 of them. Go ham. Eat as much watermelon as you possibly can. You're going to take the best shit you've ever had in your life. You're going to end up having the greatest bathroom breaks. Your skin, you're going to notice some significant change, very significant change, actually, which is really very interesting. So try that. Just do one day.
That should be a challenge. You throw that joint in your book, man. Put that in there for people to do.
So, and I get the whole fasting thing, right? Because the body can heal itself. Right? Mm-hmm. It definitely can, but it has to have the right environment. You can't solve a problem in the same level of consciousness it was created, right? If a problem happens and you're fucking mad and frustrated, you can't keep being mad to solve it. You may be able to, but like getting there was just kind of like exhausting. You don't need to do. You kind of need to take a step back. Okay, here's the problem. This is what I need to do. Trial and error. Okay, great, right? Like, what did Albert Einstein say? He didn't do something. He didn't fail. He didn't just fail 10,000 ways. He just found 10,000 ways not to do something. Cool, great. There's 10,001. You're going to have other ways that you're going to be able to do something. And I think the fruit and being able to let that body heal itself, you have to put it in the right environment. And I think fruit is definitely going to be able to help heal the organs, and it is going to be able to do so many different things to the body, help your endocrine cycle, your hormone cycle. It balances out so many other things. It's pretty ridiculous, even within blood. So the only way I'm going back to eating meat is if I kill something. That's about it.
Thank you, because in a span of about 10 to 15 minutes, I think you did the whole plant-based rationale more justice than I was able to do in a whole episode we had one time. So thank you so much for that.
Dude, and it's tough. So if for all my meat eaters out there, smoothie in the morning, fruit smoothie in the morning, because it's also your heaviest detoxifying hour. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Go to the bathroom, right? It's your longest digestion kind of period. So fruit in the morning, a little bit more of those leafy greens in the afternoon. You want to do bowls, great. Leftovers, cool. Try to have more greens. At night, if you can sneak in some more greens, cool. But at night is where you get back into the kitchen. Now, the only problem is people are like, oh, but my eggs and my bacon and all that other stuff. And you really got to weigh out your detoxifying and your eating properties, because here's another kind of funny thing. There's a digestion process within the body. Mm-hmm. So fruit hangs out in the stomach for 15 minutes.
Talk about that food combining. Talk about it.
You got cooked vegetables would go next. It's easier to digest, right? They're already cooked, right? It comes down. So the fiber is a little bit easier to break down. Then you have raw vegetables. So cooked vegetables, 20, 25, raw vegetables, 30, 35, nuts and seeds, 45, animal products, anything 45 plus. It's going to stay in the stomach. So let's say I make for you a lettuce wrap taco. We're going to throw some pork in there. We're going to throw some salsa. Let's make it peach salsa. Yes, get some peach. So we got like a sweet peach salsa. Some, you got your tomato in there. So you got some fruit. You got your meat. Let's throw some carrots. Let's get a little bit of cabbage in there. And then maybe like I want another color. You could probably put some diced cucumber for a little freshness. You're probably like, damn, that sounds like a good, pretty healthy taco, right? Check this out. Because the body has a priority for digestion, if you put meat and fruit together and fruit goes faster, fruit is going to hang out in the stomach and let what digests longer go first. Well, fruit's not supposed to hang out in an acidic environment, which is the stomach. It's an acidic environment to break down food, which is why fruit doesn't hang out that long. It doesn't need to. As soon as it hits that acid, boom, bubbles up, shoots right through, gets into the intestines within 15 minutes. So if fruit is hanging out in the stomach and meat goes first, and do this test on yourself. Go have like a burger and then eat a banana afterward, or eat some strawberries or eat some blueberries afterward. Bro, you're going to have some bloating and gas, and it's going to be hilarious. But it's a good test to do. You could feel it. Like you're like, holy shit, this is really happening. But so the fruit will hang back in the stomach and the meat will go first. So now fruit is sitting in the stomach. And what happens when we put fruit like that in an acidic environment? We get fermentation. What happens with fermentation? You create alcohol. So that's what we do with grapes, right? We ferment grapes and we create wine. So now you have your stomach fermentating whatever fruit you had, whether it's the tomatoes, whatever else was in there, and it's fermenting, creating an alcohol. So people are like, oh, fruit raises your blood sugar. So I looked at a study. The reason why that they were able to say that fruit raises blood sugar was based off the assumption that you already had meat in your diet, because that's a part of the diet. Eggs in the morning, bacon, maybe a little bit, right? Think when is meat not involved? Oh, you got a little bit of eggs, you got a little bit of bacon. Okay, now we got a turkey burger in the afternoon. Boom, a nice steak in the evening. Your body doesn't have a break. Constantly having meat like back to back to back. So now, on another note, there's an adrenaline response. So I think you'll like this, Sae'Von. I think you'll like this quite a bit. And let me know if I'm going, hey, honey, let me know if you think I'm going a little bit too over with this.
Oh, this is what we wanted, dog.
So have you ever craved Kobe beef? James, have you ever craved Kobe beef, Wagyu beef? I know you've had it. You've had to have Wagyu.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So do you crave it?
No.
Why?
Well, it's expensive as dick, first of all. And, second of all, I've had it very few times.
But it's delicious. Melts in your mouth, right? So
it's great. I'm just not going to spend that money every week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, do you crave other meat?
Honestly, I eat meat so frequently, I don't crave it at all.
Nice. In the past, have you ever? There was a time where I would be like, man, I could really go for a cheeseburger. Simple things like that. Or I can go for a steak. Back in the day when I was eating meat a lot more, I definitely did. Have you ever kind of felt like that way? Or have you seen other people kind of do that to a degree?
Oh, I've seen tons of other, like my mom, that's come out of my mom's mouth, my sister's mouths. Like that was a common thing. Like, oh, we having steak. It's 9 a.m. I can't wait for tonight. I'm like, yeah, interesting. Okay.
So this might be a hard left field turn, but so my theory around why people are craving or addicted to meat is not that they're actually addicted to the meat. They're not addicted to the gains. They're not addicted to, the protein that is in there. People are so fun. Oh, where do you get your protein from? Like you act like you went to KFC, looking at the side of your KFC box, like, oh yeah, how much protein is in this? Like you did not look at the protein content of the Big Mac. Get out of here, dude. Like no.
And on top of that, even a cow. What does a cow eat all day long?
Grass. Right. So what people are addicted to is the adrenochrome found in the animal.
Careful.
Hey, Let's go.
I'm going there. So if you think about it, so now let's think about it from this standpoint. So For all the people that are listening, adrenochrome is created within the body when an individual or an animal is tortured very heavily in any aspect. And when that person or when that animal is going through a lot of pain, their adrenal glands release what is known as adrenochrome. And as that heightens within the body, these cells end up gaining or end up, having this adrenochrome response to it. And it's a very heightened stress response found within the entire part of the body. So how is the cow for Wagyu beef killed?
They have the lowest stress because they're grazing all day long. We talked about this a little bit, but I did not connect the adrenochrome to the stress response. But that's why the beef is so tender, is because they live a life, and that's why it's so expensive, because they have to basically pamper these damn cows all day long so that they don't stress out and get tight and tense. And then, bruh, that shit's crazy.
So I was thinking about it. Now, of course, my education from where adrenochrome really started from wasn't necessarily with food.
No, facts.
I was like, I couldn't understand why people were so addicted to meat like that. And I was just like, it's because the animal that they're having is tortured, basically. And depending on what animal that they're catching or whatever they're going through, tastes significantly different. This is why animals that run away, regardless of how you kill them, will always taste different. Fish will taste consistent, right? Now we have to farm them. But fish are always running away, whether or not it's another fish catching them or it's us catching them. Fish are always running away. Deer are always running away. This is why those animals don't need to be rubbed down like in Japan, like what they do with Wagyu beef. These guys with Wagyu beef, they are literally rubbing the cows and giving them massages, and then they get like a light lethal injection, and then they slowly pass out and hit the floor. And now you got cows in America hung by one leg, upside down, one dude sliced their throat, let all the blood come out, and then they're on a line, and you're next to your buddy hung upside down for 50 to 100 yards, bleeding to death. Like, you're going to go through an adrenaline response and a stress response dying one way versus dying like that. And I truly feel like people are addicted to meat solely because of adrenochrome response, which is why, as a vegan, I don't think eating meat will ever truly completely go away to an extent, depending on the environment in which people live. Because it's going to be really hard for me to grow an orange tree if I were to live in the mountains of Colorado. So, going to these places and where we live, there's going to be different things and that we're going to kind of play back and forth with. But that's where I made that connection, and I was like, wow, that was a huge difference right there. So that's my take on why people are addicted to meat.
That makes so much sense. That literally blew my mind something crazy, because I never considered the adrenochrome addiction component of the stress environment that these animals go through. The animals that people eat at a mass scale, at least. So,
did you know that Google Chrome has a server? And do you know what their server name is?
Hit me with it.
You know? Their server name is Adreno.
It's so funny.
I'm gonna just leave that there.
Do. Hey, man. Sometimes, because what I came across many years ago is that basically, from my understanding, the reason that they have to telegraph a lot of times what they do is in an attempt to offload the karmic debt in the event that they get recycled into another life and they don't, kind of move up to the next tier of things. And so by communicating the information, there's kind of this universal law of, no, we gave them the information, then they made their own decision. We didn't coerce anybody.
Correct. Actually, that is 100% correct. It goes against the laws of free will. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, why Jesus was more profound with the follow me portion, was because it's one thing to preach and be able to talk, but if he criticized for what others were doing, which in some cases he had to battle that, right? But in my opinion, the whole follow me thing was more so an action of if you are following me, you are now choosing to take the information that I am giving you because you're accepting, like you're choosing to come to class. Follow me. Great. I'm going to show up to class. You don't like the information that class was given. That's not on me. That is on you because you chose to listen to the information. You chose to accept the information. From there, it's very, I mean, the devil's the great deceiver. And it's kind of interesting if you look at any picture of Baphomet the devil, whatever depiction, there's one funny picture of the devil where he's sitting down, and of course he's got the goat head, and it's all this symbology, right? And there's two kids in front, a male and a female, and they've got chains on their ankle, but the chain is kind of connected to like a spoke. And the kids, if they wanted to, they can just take the chain off and just go wherever they want. So it's a feeling like you're trapped in, but you're really not. You can eliminate as much as possible. You can let go and you can walk away whenever you'd like to, but it has to be, your choice. You have to be the one that really kind of accepts that information. I think that's where a lot of people get very manipulated now because we're so far down a rabbit hole of information that because people have never wanted to research stuff before, the battle between disinformation, misinformation, and truth is so out there that it's created another series of confusion that the devil appreciates because he's like, I've done such a good job confusing you to begin with that by the time you end up getting with truth, you never worked on your own level of consciousness and you never worked on your own level of awareness. So it won't matter if you get the truth. It won't really matter if you get it because you like convenience more than you like truth. My dad says that a lot. He says that we're living in an age where we traded in God for convenience. And I told him the other day at dinner, I said, once all the convenience goes away, people are going to be begging for God again real quick.
And I think that takes us back to the conversation we had prior to really starting to record this episode about being in that in-between phase before we reach this paradise where people have to suffer so greatly that then they start to realize, damn, I've been doing things in a way that I didn't have to do, or I maybe should change this or go about this in a different way. And that's when that dark night of the soul kicks off en masse. And then, once people kind of go through that and they have to find that light, it's like, people ain't too busy looking for a light until it's dark. So,
well, you cannot have, your brain is not going to be able to accept higher levels of consciousness unless you've understood deeper levels of pain, right? As is above, so is below.
Yeah.
So you have to, you can't just have frivolous hope without being like, no, there's a realization of some evil going on. There's a very deep realization of some evil. Like my mom does this quite a bit. She thinks that, and I do believe this, in one foul swoop, I think that all of humanity can raise the level of consciousness quite quickly, actually. But we would all need to like sit and meditate, like every time zone, every person across the world, you sit and meditate and think love for like 10 seconds to a minute. I would say that if 9 billion people opened their eyes after 1 minute of just thinking love, I have no idea where our planet would be, our society. Like I literally have no idea. But people don't want to do the shadow work. They don't want to end up doing that really deep level of work. And usually it takes something to happen for people to learn. So I'm going to bring in a COVID comment. It's probably going to get me unliked right here. So this is going to be cool. I've been thinking about saying this for a minute. So a lot of people were like, oh, COVID killed a bunch of lives, right? So we got COVID deaths in the beginning, right? It's all up here. But then, and correct me if I'm wrong, interrupt me if I'm wrong, heart disease, cancer, and all that stuff was dropping. Am I wrong so far?
Talk that shit.
So I don't know about heart disease and cancer and stuff dropping, but what was dropping was as COVID cases rose, flu cases, the common cold, rhinovirus, and all of RSV and all the rest of this stuff that has been overwhelmingly staggering for years and years and years, it almost went away.
Right? So this is going up and this is going down. We do agree that COVID's going up and then other cases to a degree are...
The reporting is shifting. The balance is shifting, right? For at least reporting side. Mm-hmm.
this may be a little hard to swallow. I don't think that it goes for all people. I don't think it's for everyone or all cases. I really don't believe that whatsoever. What I do believe is that if there were people that had pre-existing conditions, okay, and COVID ended up coming up, and let's say COVID was the one that ended up taking their life, and all these other cases dropped, in my opinion, that person was going to go anyway. Hate saying it like that. I hate being like, hey, you were going to die anyway. Nope, I'm not taking my words back. I said what I said. If COVID and all this stuff was going up and we have all these pre-existing conditions and we have all this other stuff, and people have been warned for so long of like, hey, we have already had cancers. We've already had all these other diseases. We've already had all this other stuff. And we then get hit with a pandemic and people were begging to go back to normal. Bro, you got to have a high level of ignorance to want to go back to that shit, to want to go back to a whole level of like, we already have all these other different diseases and all this other stuff. So if the numbers of deaths really did not change overall, then plus the fact that we're killing our own, right? In 2020, I think there in the world, we had 47 million abortions. So at the end of the day, I'm like, we're not able to take care of our own coming in. And then we have this series of all these other diseases. When are we going to have something happen for people to make a change? And now 2 years into COVID, and a lot of people still haven't wanted to make changes. A lot of people still want to go back to normal. They want to go back to their old way of living. They want to go back to their old way of life. And this is a really hard pill to swallow. Like it happened with my, so it's not like I definitely wasn't reaping any of this. It happened to my dad. My dad knew that smoking could be really bad, right? We know that it causes cancer. We know that all those things cause it. He did it anyway. Boom, he had a stroke. I don't feel bad for him. Not one bit. It sucked. It was really tough. He made his bed. He's gonna, he's got to sleep in it. That's it. No big deal. He's a fighter. He's a warrior. Great. I'm gonna be there to help you out. And I'm not gonna. No, you're not a victim of some of the circumstances that you definitely chose. You know what I'm saying? Like if I end up, if for someone like me that goes so extreme with their diet, so extreme with their behavior, so extreme with their food, I end up getting cancer, I end up getting something, great. I'm going to come back and I'll be able to tell you I'm sorry. I'll be able to be like, hey, you know what? Eating all that good food and eating all that stuff did me no good.
Didn't do shit.
So guess what? I'm the idiot. I'll admit that I'm the idiot. I get cancer, heart disease, or something down the road. Something bad ends up happening. I'll fall on that sword all day. Until then, as far as I'm concerned, if these numbers went up, these numbers went down, then by golly, and did all those people need to obviously die from COVID? No, they didn't need to. We did a lot of extreme measures when COVID first started, right? Like we were able to get everybody a free vaccine, but we couldn't get everybody free water.
That shit.
Coca-Cola and Smart Water. You couldn't be like, hey, you know what? We're going to swallow $1 billion from Coca-Cola. We still got our proprietary stuff. You can have your, as a matter of fact, we'll up the price of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola could have made more money. They could have said, we're going to double the price of Coca-Cola because we know it's not good for you. They doubled the price of cigarettes. Did it stop anybody from smoking? It went from $5 to, what is it, like $10 a pack in New York City? If you want to buy a pack of cigarettes, $8 a pack. People want it. Great, you want it. Don't be mad with what comes with it. Don't be mad with the cancers. Don't be mad with the other shit. If it happens, it happens. So sorry for anybody, young, old, going through a lot, because there was some young people that I know suffered. I don't want anybody to go through, anything traumatic, and I feel definitely bad for anybody. But at the end of the day, we had way too many people blaming COVID. And I don't care what you're blaming. You're lacking responsibility. If you're blaming something, you're lacking responsibility. I'm sorry. I can't. I said what I said. That's it.
Yeah, you're good. I feel what might be. I know you got to get to your training session not too long, but that's a whole different route that I think everybody on this panel right now is comfortable going down. Yeah, we might need to give that its own space someday because there's a lot to pull out there. But I think at the core, what you were just communicating is ultimately, it is a pattern of behaviors and decisions and worldviews that get somebody in the situation that they're in. And let's not play around with the nomenclature and how it's categorized, because where people wind up didn't happen overnight, good, bad, or otherwise. And it takes effort, it takes decisive action, decisions, and sacrifice a lot of the times to wind up in a better place than somebody once was prior. And if somebody doesn't want to do that work and they think that a shot, they think that a pill, they think that any magical little silver bullet is going to change their situation, that's tough.
Yes. Yeah. No. So, I mean, I have plenty of compassion, plenty of empathy, but I also want people to have that understanding of accountability, and acceptance, not just to blame something, because then we're just right back to where we started. Is this? Oh, is it like, okay, if we want to have a really deep conversation, if anybody's listening to this or when they do, if they want to look at numbers and they want to look at, I would rather look at, give me all the people that died with COVID if they're vegan. That's the number I want to know. Don't talk to me about anything else, because we know that there's bad stuff in some of the meat. So, like, I would want to look at the people that died that are hunting their own meat,
mm-hmm.
and see how many people died from COVID that are eating their own meat that they've hunted. And I want to see the amount of vegans that have died from COVID. And then we can talk about COVID being, that deadly and like blaming that. Then we can look at, those numbers more accurately.
You'll never get those numbers. You never realize that.
Ever. So that's why I feel like I can just stand my ground and be like, I said what I said.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, though, that you're lacking empathy or you're lacking compassion for making an assertion that everyone must have personal responsibility in their life, because at the end of the day, if you don't have that, what do you have? If you don't have that, you have your finger pointed at everyone else. Do you point the finger at Sae'Von, who is in his house working on native assets, when I wreck my car going 95 miles an hour on I-85? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
So why are we blaming this thing that is out here? But, potentially man-made. I could be.
They already shown that. They already shown that it came from the lab and all that stuff. So
regardless, where's your personal responsibility? I mean, I think that is a thread that is in everything that we've spoken about so far today. It is, first of all, the information is out there. We've talked about ubiquitous assimilation before. Miguel, I think you and I have chopped it up about that episode specifically. There's information everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff that we're taking in at all times. Stimuli everywhere. And if you want the answers, you can find them. They might not be right in front of your face. You might have to do a little bit of work. You might have to open up a book. You might have to talk to somebody that knows something. But the information's there. We can plead ignorance all day. Doesn't change the fact that we're acting like idiots as a collective.
And people forget that just because you have more information doesn't make you smarter. Like, it doesn't. MIT puts all of their classes online complimentary. So if you want an engineering or learn engineering in any standpoint or any kind of anything, you can do it. You're not going to get a degree, but that doesn't mean you can't learn. So, a lot of people, and that's, going back to what, Sae'Von was saying earlier about the general talking about the general information that we were talking about before, where disinformation, the misinformation, right? That all this is convoluted. It's just the devil's kind of sitting back, happy, like, you're going to have to make a choice. And the devil's so confident in the choices that people are going to go with compromising and what they think they already know, that they're not going to be willing to change their own body or to do something different to feel what those changes need to be like. Like, talking about diets again. I think it's really ridiculous that we have like thousands of different diets, all these different studies, but we've never been able to be like, hey, this is a pretty sound diet. Like, we knew we messed up with the food pyramid. And after that, we were just like, we know we fucked up, but we're not going to help with anything else. And just leave it and just let it be that. And then it was just this diet, eat this way. And then everybody now is like, this is what I eat. That's why I've never done one of those, like what I eat in a day, just because it's just like, that doesn't really apply to everybody. But here we are. So to that notion, people are in the mode where they're being forced to become more aware. They're being forced to become more conscious of themselves because they have to try. They have to go through it. They can't take off of anybody else's feelings or anybody else's process and think that their process is going to go the exact same way. Like, no, you have to go through it. You and you alone. You can get help, but you got to go through it. I got a couple more minutes. I still got a good 10 minutes.
No, I feel like we just got that fire on the ass, man. You just got lit. Well,
I'm loving it.
Yeah, like you said, you got a few more minutes left. Is there anything else that we haven't been able to touch on? You just want to get off your chest while you have time here with us?
And I think we'll definitely do this again. We will definitely do this again at some point. So don't feel that there's pastures that we're never gonna walk through. That will happen, but
I like, you mentioned something, Sae'Von, earlier, and I think this is kind of a cool one to end on. I think I did this with James when one time we were at a kettle club or doing something, because you said going back to source. And I don't think a lot of people understand what source really is, or source energy, or understanding like a level of source like that. Have you ever asked anybody, especially when it comes to people that are lacking in a God consciousness or a Christ consciousness to a degree? Have you ever had anybody be like, oh, I don't believe in God or like a higher power or anything along those lines? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm always baffled.
Have you ever asked them to say their name? So I'll do it to you really quick. So Sae'Von, I want you to say your name out loud. Go for it whenever you're ready.
Oh, see, now I'm thinking too intellectually about it, but how most people would respond would be Sae'Von Malik Springer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
I'd like you to now say that to yourself on the count of 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Aye.
Okay, there you go. So did you say that? Did you say your name to yourself?
No.
Did you? So do it again.
Oh, that voice in my head. Okay, so the voice in my head that says, yes.
Yes. So if you were to say it on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, you said it?
Mm-hmm.
You did say it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're saying, so the question is, did you say it? Technically, you didn't speak. And me and James definitely didn't hear you. So who said it?
That's where the question comes in.
That's where I like to be like, so some people are kind of like, oh, God doesn't exist. And I'm like, and then I sometimes like to hit people with like, you are not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're the observer of kind of those things. So being able to kind of separate, those two, I like, and we have like this sense of identity where we're like, yes, like I understand that. But then there's this whole other viewpoint and this whole other like dimension of reality where you can kind of talk to yourself, but it's not, necessarily you. You didn't say it, you didn't speak it, but what necessarily that voice. And I kind of usually bring that to, that's where that source energy starts to begin. So I usually tell people this: Sae'Von, you are God living a Sae'Von experience. James is God living a James experience. And that gets to a whole nother deeper dimension of kind of like, because think about how many people are on this planet and we all have different thoughts, different realities, different viewpoints, different perceptions. And it's like, if you really wanted to understand yourself as a source, you would want to go and unlearn. You would almost want to be a blank slate and know yourself without judgment and learn of the self without judgment. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to do. Like, think about it. We come into this world not knowing anything, right? And we're completely reliant on everybody else to tell us the rules. But then as we get older, we start to kind of like understand the rules ourselves a little bit. And we get to this own wisdom and like understanding. We start to separate like, oh, that was bad advice. this was good advice. Oh, I like that. I'm going to kind of hold on to that. Like as we grow in that awareness, and that's where we keep connecting with source in our sense of uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
And we find identity, but realistically, there's only one. There's only the law of one. Have you read that book? I talked to James about that a little bit. Have you read The Law of One?
I haven't read The Law of One. I've read the Kabbalion, though. I mean, I've read a few different texts, but I think it's different texts communicate things differently. But that general idea that, even the idea that the contradiction of a zero or a state of non-being,
right.
And just to your point, how far you have to really start pulling to notice the contradictions and the wisdom and the ignorance and it's so much to chew on that sometimes, because even growing up how I did, I think a lot of us did in a very religious household, that sometimes was lacking what I felt was spirituality from my vantage point, because I just couldn't connect with how certain things were being communicated or even certain practices. But that's why I say, when you initially asked me, anybody who answers that question, oh, do you believe in God? And they're like, no. I'm just kind of like, wow, okay, well, I don't know you, but that just told me a lot. And yeah, I think that's part of what's beautiful about this time we're living in, is we are really seeing in real time a massive shift at a macro scale. And, like, what is time anyway? So to your point about if everybody really stopped, and when you look at the studies that show people's different things that you can prove through quote unquote science being changed literally based on people's thoughts, and just how the law of attraction, quantum physics, and all these things really work, and how much consciousness drives it all. That, when you start telling people that, yeah, I switched my diet because I needed to make sure I could be powered up, power a light bulb with orange, people are kind of like, what? Like, why would that matter? Who cares about the vibratory, field? And it's just like, the fact that we can even sit down and discuss these things and have words to even put to some of these concepts, to me, is an indication of where we are at collectively. And, the optimism that you spoke about earlier, and why I wasn't in the same boat many years ago. I was very pessimistic when I first started doing some deep digging, and then I kind of had to pull myself back up. It was just like, actually, the fact that I'm looking into this says a lot, because I ain't that special.
But you are.
And see what I'm saying? The contradiction. Yeah. So it's like, hey, man.
And so this is one of the last things that I know we're kind of running out of time. So we're starting to get into some consciousness, and there's dimensions of consciousness, right? So we have 3D, which is up, down, left, right, back and forth, plus time, right? Because time creates a moment. That's really all it does. 4D is up, down, left, right, forward and back, in and out, plus time. So one of the things that I've been trying to practice a lot more, and I've been doing this for a little bit now, and I keep trying to do it more, but I keep practicing my time travel. And a lot of people are like, you can't time travel. And I'm like, I know I can't, but I feel like we do it all the time mentally. And here's a great example, because I hope with anybody that's watching or listening, I want everybody to practice a little bit of time travel. And it deals with just a conscious thought mentally of how you're kind of thinking about some things. And the reason why I started thinking about some of this stuff is because in the Law of One, it talks about when right now we're living in a 3-dimensional world. But when you start to access levels of 4 dimensions, that would be equivalent to me and you sitting in a room, and you could hear my thoughts. I don't have to speak, but because you are connected with in and out, and I'm connected with in and out, if we were in the same room, you'd be able to hear my thoughts. Now, that is extremely profound in a sense of consciousness when it comes to the world. Can you imagine being in a room with someone and not having to talk, and your thoughts instantly just connect with one another? They just, boom, they just go back and forth. We get it in little ways. Oh, I was thinking about you when you called me. Oh my God, your ears are burning. Oh, that's cute. it happens in these little ways all the time, but we just don't take it any level steps further because we don't practice it. We don't practice meditation and things like that on that deeper levels. And then we're all clouded with all these other distractions and all this other stuff going on. So I knew I wouldn't be able to be there. But one of the things that stated in the law of one was that people aren't ready for a lot of 4D because you don't have, once you get into 4D, you don't have control of that. All of your thoughts are out there. In a world of 4D, you cannot hide a damn thing. There is no privacy because there's no insecurity. There is no worry of, what am I thinking? Will this person think negatively? Oh, well, how does that person feel? Nope. You are compassionately being able to connect, and you can just boom, boom, boom. All those thoughts go back and forth. Everything is much insane. Can you imagine what kind of world we'd be in if that was the case? How many people would need to be alone just because they need to be like, you don't want to hear what's going on in my head. Y'all need to back on up. I am not ready to walk into that room. So going back to the time travel and preparing kind of like for 4D, there's some of the stuff. So let's say, and then people time travel all the time. If let's say you get broken up with, you have a heartache, a problem happens, you want to be revengeful, you want to be, something ends up happening. We go through time travel all the time. As soon as, let's say, something bad happens, I get kicked off the football team because I'm not good enough. Oh, well, you know what? Well, I'm gonna get some bad grades. I'm gonna piss my parents off and I'm gonna do all this. We literally have so many premeditated thoughts. It's not even funny. And that is literally the definition of time travel. You are literally putting your mind in a time span, train of thought of something in the future. And then maybe if you don't like it, you kind of come back to your heart center and you're like, nah, maybe I don't want to be revengeful. That's not who I am. So that's why I tell people, it's not bad to have that thought. Don't think your thoughts are always that bad. Like, great, something bad happened to you. Cool. You wanted to turn around and punch that person in the face. That's not a bad thought. That's a very normal response. You wanted to play the role of karma. No big deal. But if you respond that way, keep following that. Okay, after you punch that person in the face, what happens after? Keep following that thread. So everybody can time travel. Your thoughts are a medium of travel. If I want to get to James' houses right now, I got to get in my car and I got to drive there. If I want to have a thought about what I want a future to look like, think about that. I don't care how dark that path is or positive. Go there because you can always come back if you do not like what that future outcome is like. So think about like your heart is like a center and every direction that you can possibly go back, forward. It doesn't matter because time, something we created, right? So you can time travel. Everybody has the ability to time travel with a decision that they make, with something that happens with their job. You get fired. Yes, you can go back in and you could shoot your boss. Maybe not the best idea. It's a thought, not a bad one to have. You're just pissed off. Cool, have it. Come back to Heart Center really quick. Who really are you? And what is the response you really want to have? Now time travel down that line and create that path. So many people will create bad here, but they don't want to create the good. They don't want to time travel for good. Everybody time travels for bad. But no one wants to time travel for good because it usually involves some tough spots. Oh, I want to have a business. Fuck, I need to give up X. I need to give up this. The time path in the long run is good. Yeah, and that line is fantastic. There's just some bumps along the way. That doesn't mean the road's bad. You just got to follow that path and kind of foresee that all the way through. So practice time traveling. Not a bad thing.
Hey, man. James?
We're just gonna cut it there. That's a hell of a way to end. I think that's a nice hanger to leave everyone with, and I think that we will definitely need to revisit a secondary episode to pull on some strings that we decided not to pull on. We passed by. We decided to go down other paths, but never thought about time travel like that. I'll tell you what. So, it's been a damn pleasure to have you on, Miguel.
Bro, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. Sae'Von, I'll give you space to speak. But yeah, it's been a hell of an episode. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm just echoing the same thoughts. This is lovely. We definitely want to get you back on, so we'll have something to line that up with down the road. But thank you for being so yourself. That's something I tend to thank people with, so long as they've done that, because we really get to learn a good deal about you in this conversation. And I know for sure a lot of people have now been given some things to chew on that they may have never chewed on before. And so I think that's going to be a good challenge for a lot of people. So don't shy away from it. There's some actionable things to do. So have a day where you don't eat anything but watermelon. It's great. If you've never done it, do that. Practice your time travel. What else you got for them, Miguel? Any other takeaways, things you want to direct them to? Tell them about the book. Any other thoughts you want to leave the people with before we sign off?
And then also how they find you outside of this podcast.
So Instagram at Miguel J. Ortiz. I also have my Instagram at conscious_athletics. I'm permanently suspended on Twitter, so you might not be able to find me on there. And that is my only social media. I did have my YouTube channel up with Conscious Athletics. I need to add a lot more videos. And then I have my website, consciousathletics.com as well.
Okay. Excellent. And then do you have any finite timeline on when they can get the book, or if anything they can go and pre-order now?
Nothing that they can pre-order and get now. And it's really a little bit of a journey, story, educational route. Like, you're not going to open this book and have all the answers for what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a book that gives you a greater awareness around all these diets, this disease, disharmony, why all this is here, and just giving people hope for balancing out their diet without creating so many extremes. Like, I just don't want people to feel like they need to do so many bad things. So to end on a couple of these things here, your fruits are going to be your cleansers, detoxifiers. They fuel your brain and they give you quality energy. So you're going to get these quality, good, healthy sugars from, and good carbohydrates. You're also going to have your vegetable category, which is going to be a little bit more from a muscular structure. What is going to be happening from a photosynthesis standpoint, from what the cells are going to be absorbing. Have you ever looked at a leaf and then looked at like the veins in your arm and you're like, oh, I'm a lot more like this tree than I thought I was. And then your nuts and seeds, those are going to be like your joints. Those are going to be helpful for the joints, ligaments, other builders of the body, so to say, beyond some of the refer carbs and standpoint, because you can get your proteins from those plants and you can get the proteins from animals. It's just going to come with different packages. So I would put the categories of food that great. You want to build a lot of muscle? Cool. You're going to need carbs. You're going to need protein. So carbs, fantastic. And you're going to need your vegetables or your animal protein. If you want to be really lean, anybody that wants to be super skinny, ladies, anybody that wants to be really lean really quickly, go eat fruit for like a week straight. You'll thank me later. You're welcome. Go as hard as you can. Eat as much fruit as your heart desires. Do yoga, chill. Don't do the craziest exercise. Because if you do some heavy lifting, you're going to crave heavier carbs. You can't eat all fruit and do a heavy workout and be like, oh, I'm still just craving watermelon. No way. I learned that really quickly myself. Like, if you have a hard, intense workout, you're going to crave harder carbohydrates. You're not just going to be able to have fruit. But if you're sitting on the beach for a week and you're chilling, you want to lean out, all fruit all day.
Love it. Well, thank you. Thank you again for that. Everybody, make sure to check out Miguel Ortiz if you're interested in any of the many, many different topics we meandered past today. And we'll be sure to go in more depth down the road on some of these other tangents. And as always, the snippets for this episode, the full length, you can find that on anchor.fm/Eighty20. Also on the popular streaming platforms, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, all the places you find podcasts. And if you want to find the snippets, go over to IG as well as YouTube. And we will talk to y'all in the next episode. Thank y'all. Y'all stay blessed. Y'all stay balanced. We out.
Thank you.
Peace.
Later, guys. Be good.